The most important thing that I'm most proud of in the entire company as the CEO is the team that we have at Aquascape. You're done developing your team. You're always going to be lookout for the next member of the team. And of course, you have to replace people when they go down for whatever reason. The first job of a CEO is to guide and guard the company culture. And that's what I pride myself on doing. So I work on the business and then I guide and guard the company culture. The culture of Aquascape is on full display when you come to Aqualand, which is my dream. And to be experiencing that and to network with other individuals, you'll just take your game to the next level.
Hey, Greg.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Well, I would be in a better mood if I didn't read the latest on the Buckeyes.
Seth McLaughlin. Man. Crazy.
Right when they get it figured out, it happens again.
They lost Josh Simmons at the beginning of the year.
Exactly. And that's already the weakest part of our whole team was cobbled together offensive line, and now it's just even that much weaker.
Man, I thought it was a joke. My buddy texted me, and apparently it's not.
Yeah, my dad texted me, and I Googled it. I'm like, hopefully this is not accurate. And of course, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but it's basically true.
Yeah, all the major guys are saying he's out for the year.
Awful. And injuries are part of the game. If we wouldn't have lost Harrison against Georgia 2 years ago at the end of the third quarter with that cheap shot, we would have won the national championship.
Well, even if they would have called targeting on that, we would have won. Because even with him going out of the game, if it would have been targeting, it would have been 1st and goal from the 2. They would have scored a touchdown, and they still would have won.
Yep.
And exactly. I don't know how that wasn't targeting. I mean, that was crazy.
Well, they threw a flag and they picked it up. Remember?
Yeah.
It's so hard to be a fan.
Well, now they got Indiana, Michigan. Or probably Oregon then after Michigan.
Yep. And it takes a while to figure, like, of any position group, that's the one that's most dependent on, people knowing, having the sixth sense of knowing what the guy next to you is doing. And now they got to scramble again. Just tough breaks. Tough to be a fan, like I said.
Yeah. Now, are you going to go to the Michigan game this year in Columbus, or?
I go every other year to the Michigan game because every other year I'm in Michigan for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Except for this year, for the first time in forever, we're hosting Thanksgiving in Utah.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw this, but both my boys are engaged.
Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah. So, both our kids followed us out west out here and live about 40 minutes from us and about 20 minutes from each other. And they both met girls at the same time, and they both got engaged 6 days apart.
Okay. Fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah. And we're happy because, they both met them through church.
Yeah. Good women.
Very nice. And their families are from Tennessee and West Virginia. So they're here for Thanksgiving. And so we're staying here and hosting Thanksgiving.
Okay. That house looks massive. How many square feet is your pad out there?
It's everything is relative, right, buddy? I built a 9,000 square foot home back in 1999, moved in December of 99. So this is a 4,000 square foot home, and it is massive because we're just the two of us, right? Mm-hmm. So, but compared to our old home, it's less than half the size.
Yeah, well, it looks awesome. I've seen the pond in your videos, and just the lake. Is that a mountain range or something from your?
I'm watching them grooming the trails right now at Deer Valley Mountain Resort.
Wow.
So they just expanded it, so it's always been on the other side of the ridge. Now it's on this side of the ridge. They more than doubled the size. It's the largest ski resort constructed in North America in the last 50 years.
Wow.
So we are in between Park City and Heber City. So we're 8 minutes from the lift for Deer Valley, and we're 20 minutes from the lift for Park City. And the Deer Valley lift just got expanded because they, are putting billions of dollars into the development of that whole property. So it's kind of nice. When we moved in here 3 years ago, we didn't have Deer Valley views, but as of this season, coming in a few weeks, we'll have Deer Valley views.
Wow. You like living out there in Utah?
No, we love it. It's beyond. It's like I feel like I'm on vacation. I'm at a resort vacation every day.
Wow.
I don't know how you feel like when you're in Florida, but that's how we feel.
Yeah, I love Florida, Greg. It's the sunsets every night over the Gulf of Mexico. I just pinch myself. It's amazing. I'm loving it
I
here.
I figured it out. Now you just need to meet a good Christian woman, and you'll be set.
Yeah, and I'll have some hopefully good updates for you soon. I got some. I only need one, but I got some good options here, so it's looking promising.
Good. All right, you want to get to this?
Yeah. Now the way I just hit record at the beginning, so we're already into it. I stitch in the intro afterwards. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
everyone,
yeah.
if you don't mind people hearing Josh Simmons and Seth McLaughlin, we'll just we'll just keep it going.
Whatever. Your podcast. I'll roll with how you
Well,
want to roll.
I used to not hit record right away, and then what would happen is we'd finish the episode, and at the end, the guest would say all this good stuff, and then sometimes at the beginning they say all this good stuff. So I just started hitting record before the guest even comes on, and just raw recording everything, and then it's better that way. So
Let's rock and roll, buddy.
but before we get into business, I do want your prediction here. So we're recording this for you guys watching, listening. We're recording this before the Indiana game. Ohio State plays Indiana at home. They play Michigan at home, and then they play Oregon in Indianapolis. What's your prediction here?
Well, I don't want to take a page out of Howard's book, the Heisman winner from Michigan who never ever picks against Michigan, but I cannot pick against my Buckeyes. So I don't know if we'll cover the spread, which as of yesterday was 12.5 against Indiana. But let's see how let's see how this will be. It's very interesting, like I said, to be a fan because it's very hard to be a fan because you can't control the outcome on the field and you live and die by your team's success. But I think Ryan Day is a fantastic coach. I think how he's done things. So I'm gonna go that we lost to Oregon, the number one team, by 1 point on the road in a neutral stadium like Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. I'm gonna give us the nod, even if it's by 1 point. And then if we can get through them, the number one team, obviously, of course, we have to take care of business with Indiana and Michigan. I would say that we would be the odds-on favorite to win the Natty.
Yeah, because they would be the 1 seed and they'd get a bye that first round of this new 12-team playoff. Is that correct?
That's correct. And as everybody has now started to realize, where people were saying that the regular season wouldn't matter if they expanded the playoffs to, from 4 teams to 12, it's only increased interest because the team on the 13th of the bubble is currently right now Georgia.
Is that right?
Well, no, they just beat Tennessee. So they were a week ago, they were the one team that was on the bubble.
Okay. My producer is a big Georgia Bulldog fan. Humongous. So
well, tell your producer that we would have beat him if we had Marvin Harrison after that cheap shot.
Oh, he knows. He asked what our kicker, I forget the guy's name that hooked that kick. He's like, I sent him a Christmas card right as the ball dropped midnight here on the Eastern time zone. That was a horrible kick.
Well, let's go. Let's rock and roll, buddy.
Yeah, Greg. So is it 6 a.m. out there?
No, it's 7.
7 a.m. So you're 2 hours. You're 2 hours behind me. I was at Naylor's event, and Stanley Dirt Monkey Genetic was using you as an example of building a wonderful team culture, and he was just singing your praises from his talk. But I do want you to share the biggest pain point my audience has, Greg, is how do I find good people? It's hard to get someone motivated to go mow grass or fling mulch or do installs, and you've assembled an all-star team. So how have you built your team?
Wow. Okay. Well, I would say it's our biggest pain point too at Aquascape. So it's not like it's not like you do it one and done and you're done. It's a continuous and constant evolution. We have about 130 teammates at Aquascape. Many people are familiar with Ed the Pond Professor, who's been the longest teammate at 32 years now, or this upcoming year will be 32, and then Brian Helfrich, who's at 30 years. This upcoming year. So those are the two kind of the cornerstones of my business, I would say. Both of them started in the field with me. We work together side by side every single day. Then I asked myself this question, which is a question I think every business owner, whether they're a mow and blow guy or a design build firm, full thing, The question that I asked myself, Paul, was, is this the job of a CEO? Is this the job of a CEO to be building ponds? My answer to that, everybody's answer is going to be different, but my answer is no, that's a foreman. And so after 2 years of working side by side and, with Ed Ballou, the pond professor, he took over my role. And then after 1 year of working with Brian Helfrich, he took over Ed's role as a laborer. And I moved out to doing just sales and design and running the business. And eventually I asked myself, is this the question? Is this the job of a CEO to be selling ponds? And of course, my answer to that was no, that's a salesman. And so both of those guys started taking on that role for me. And I just kept asking myself that question. Is this the guy? Is this the job of a CEO to be paying the bills? That's an accountant. Is this the job of a CEO to be designing and laying out the company catalog? No, that's a graphic designer. So I started my business in 91 while I was just after my junior year at the Ohio State University. And in 95, I started my mail order business. And that was I still was in the field that year, buddy, because I did $191,000 in mail order business and $424,000 of installs of water features that year. But the writing was on the wall because the next year, 96, when I pulled myself out of the field where Ed replaced me, we did 1.9 million in sales selling to other contractors my patented system to build water features. And then it just took off from there. We were an Inc. 500 fastest growing company 4 years in a row. But the most important thing, the thing that I'm most proud of in the entire company as the CEO, is the team that we have at Aquascape. And we're still, like I said, it's a never, you're done developing your team. You're always going to be on the lookout for the next member of the team. And of course, you have to replace people when they go down for whatever reason. People get transferred, their spouses, lifestyles change, whatever. So we're always constantly looking to build our bench strength, and the bench strength can become your starting strength when you lose somebody. It's the hardest thing to do in business, which is a big statement, to build a team, because there's a lot of hard things to do in business. But the question that I would always ask myself is this the job of a CEO? And my answer was always no, that's a XYZ person. And I put that person into place. And then I did one of two things. I would give them a rope and I'd get out of their way. And most of the time, as most people know, people will hang themselves when you give them a rope, but you get enough of those guys that climb, and when they climb, they pull you up higher with them. And that's kind of that's my success secret to building the culture of Aquascape. The first job of a CEO is to guide and guard the company culture. And that's what I pride myself on doing. So I work on the business, not in the business, and then I guide and guard the company culture.
Tell us a little bit more, Greg, about guiding and guarding the company culture when there's like a bad teammate or something's toxic going on. Can you explain a little bit more detail on that?
Well, when there's a bad teammate, I don't get involved. I pretty much don't get involved, period, when it comes to the teammates. I let, once again, the team handle that. I'm not an HR executive. I'll just strangle people. I'm a contractor. So that's not a good sign. So we have a process. We have a write-up thing. Yeah, I get informed of these things. I add my 2 cents, and then I let the team make the decisions, or the HR or the president or obviously the manager of that department. If I deal directly with somebody, it usually almost never goes well. So I've learned these things. Remember, Paul, this is my 33rd year doing this.
Wow.
So I've made every mistake, multiple times over. And eventually, even a knucklehead like me can, learn how to stop getting in my own way. So the first thing I do is I don't deal directly with the teammates when there's issues. I let the managers handle that, or HR. And I'm not, and that's another thing too. I know what my strengths and my weaknesses are. I am not a manager of people. I don't, write up performance reviews. I don't do reviews. I mean, I talk to people certainly, but there's a process and a system, and that's what happens when you develop a good sized business. There's a way to handle everything, and the way I handle things is to let the team handle it. And that, of course, that's how you develop a team. You get out of their way. So if I was stepping in and overriding or interfering or butting my nose in with the HR department, I'm sure that I wouldn't be able to have a good HR department. And I think that's one of the things that I know very well, is that I wear one hat, and that's to work on the business and not in it. And I let the team work in it. And subsequently, I could live out in Utah, where my company is based in Chicago. And when I go there, I just high five everybody. That's my high five and feed them. Every time I'm back, we have a party. We bring in food. Last time I was back was for Halloween. I was the water lily sheriff, which is a little character that I'm developing to try to get some awareness about water lilies. But give people a rope, let them climb, get out of their way, and the good ones they'll pull you up with you.
What's the best pizza in Chicago? I know I watch a bunch of these documentaries. It sounds like there's a bunch of famous pizza shops up there.
Deep dish, Chicago style deep dish. It's upstairs in my. We cannot find a good pizza out here in Utah. Probably the biggest complaint would be that the lack of good pizza out here. They just don't have deep dish. They have some good wood pizza out here. Some of the restaurants, but I don't even get it because I just get my pizza fill from ordering at Lou Malnati's. That is in my freezer upstairs. So they ship out. We get a package of once a month with 3 or 4 pizzas, and that gives us probably once a week or every other week, we're eating a Lou Malnati's pizza that we just throw in the oven here from, shipped frozen.
Wow. And you got to use like a knife. I watched a documentary on Illuminati's. You have to use like a knife and a fork. It's so thick.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yes, exactly how we eat it, and put on a Netflix movie, and that's kind of how my wife and I bond at night over a Lou's. Back to both of our Chicago roots.
That's great. Well, Stan Genetic was talking a lot about you during his speech, but one of the things he was sharing is that you gave him, and I think it was Kalfis and Blake, a unique experience taking them out to Logan Paul
Wow, we're going
pond.
we're going back a little ways. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was 2017, December of 2017. Logan Paul, who is the characters that I deal with, from Shaquille O'Neal, to Logan Paul, to the Big Rich, then national mullet champion, to Paul Jameson, the people I deal with, to Stanley Genetic. These guys are characters. Logan Paul, who I knew of, but I didn't really follow back in 2017, did a vlog. He was doing his daily vlogs, and he had just bought a home in Encino, California. And he said his dream was to put in a koi pond just like the one he had growing up in Ohio, in his backyard. And I am telling you, Paul, my phone blew up. I'm like, what? Okay, I'll check out the vlog. And okay, a bunch of people that I would have never guessed were watching him. I called up. It's always a connection, right? I called up my friend Brian Barczyk, who is no longer with us. Brian Barczyk on YouTube. He owns the Reptorium up in outside of Detroit, Utica, Michigan, and I knew that he had collaborated with Big Snakes with Logan Paul, and he connected me with Logan Paul. And within 24 hours of that vlog coming out, I was texting with Logan Paul, and within 48 hours, I was in Encino, California, designing a pond. And 6 weeks later, this is right pretty much when I was starting to work with Stanley and Keith and those guys. Um, uh, I was in his backyard with 40 certified aquascape contractors, and we spent 2 days building Logan Paul his dream koi pond. And I was just texting with him last week, right before his brother fought Mike Tyson. He still loves koi. He has a rental home right now in Puerto Rico, so we're not building him anything yet. But we still talk, and of course he misses his koi pond. He sold his house to Megan Kelly Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox out there, so they're living the aquascape lifestyle too. And yeah, that's how. And then the kid really started me on a journey, because as the old CEO of Aquascape, I'm like, well, I should really probably embrace this vlogging thing. And now that's my job right now. I travel the world. I'll be going to England here in 12 days, and I visit my customers and I showcase their work on all of the platforms, from TikTok to Instagram to YouTube to Facebook. And I would really kind of basically tip my hat to the Logan Paul, who really got me fired up about that, back in 2017. So I've been doing it now, 7 years, started in 2018. And we now have just under 5 million total followers at Aquascape.
Yeah, and your main YouTube channel, the Pond Guy, that's over 600,000 subscribers. What's your tip to somebody who's making content? You've been very successful at it. What's some content creation tips from Logan Paul, from Greg Wittstock? What works?
Well, honestly, Logan and I would have something in common in that, back when he was a daily vlogger, is consistency. So I have gone 7 years now without missing an upload. Yeah, pretty much. I've missed times every once in a while, once or twice a year. It happens where there's a glitch. It doesn't go out at 9 a.m. But I never miss an entire day. So I have been consistent for 7 years, 3 vlogs a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Greg Was Like the Bond Guy. And I'm already looking at, I'm very organized with my schedule, like anal with my schedule.
Mhm.
So I already know that next March during the All American Koi Show, which is March 28th, 29th, and 30th in um, Las Vegas. I will be spending that 4 days before that in California visiting my customers because I'll film in March, and then it will debut in mid-May. So, and then the cycle will just start continue. Then again, I'll be in May out in South Carolina, and then I'll be in June somewhere else. So pretty much from April through September, I'm a week or so on the road. One day, this is really cool. One day equals 2 and 3/4 weeks content for me. So I don't know anybody else that is able to have as structured or organized because my content is the same. I just visit people's backyards and showcase their ponds to the world. So I know that if I can do 8 stops in a day and I do 3 vlogs a week, that gives me 2 and 3/4 weeks of content. Not just for YouTube, but also we do shorts. We do on YouTube. We do Instagram, TikTok, all of those things. So
Mhm.
my advice to somebody else is I don't care if it's 3 days a week or 7 days a week or once a month, just consistency. Just do consistency. And I think many people start and stop things. When I'm on something, I just put a system around it, a process, and then I just execute on that, or my team executes on that. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And it would be sacrilegious for me to miss a upload.
That's so good. I'm over here taking notes of the timestamp so we can clip this and put it as Instagram reel. It's so good about consistency. That was a excellent nugget right there. Something else Stan brought up about Logan Paul was that Stan said he saw this like goal sheet that Logan had, and he had written all these goals down on his paper. And Stan's kind of nosy, and Stan pushes the boundaries and limits a little bit. So Stan's like, up in his business, like, well, talking about his goals. But Stan's like, I knew the guy was going to crush it because he had these just humongous goals and they were written down. And obviously, Logan and his brother Jake are, two of the most popular people on the planet. Did you
Well,
get to
or
know
or, pol- or
that?
polarizing people on the planet, and usually people who are successful, whether it's Steve Jobs or Logan Paul or Donald Trump, are polarizing people. Um, but it's and I'm not going to even weigh in on any of those because this is not relevant to, people can have their own opinions on things. But here's my opinion on Logan Paul, who I had a direct correlation with. I am not a good judge of character. That's another thing too about building a team is I don't rely on myself to pick the teammates. I rely on people that understand the culture of Aquascape, which I'm very strong about culture. My wife is an excellent judge of people. It took me about 10 years of arguing with her about things. Oh, great guy. She's like the back of my neck hairs would stand up. And then, 6 months later, something would go south with that person. And after about 10 years, she said to me one day, I'll never forget it, Paul. She said, why don't you listen to me the first time I warn you about somebody? And then I'm like, what do you mean? And then she said, this guy, this guy, this person, this person. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm just going to use your judge of character instead of mine. Well, my wife liked Logan Paul.
Okay.
So you know, she doesn't like a lot of people. She's usually, you got to earn her trust. I'm a Labrador retriever. I'll like you right off the get go. But I just rely on my wife when it comes to big decisions with people. I rely on my team that's better judge. I take people at face value. This is what they said, this is what they mean. No, people, even though they say black, they mean white or certainly gray. And these are things that I don't get. So I've learned my weaknesses. And my weaknesses, I'm not a good judge of character, but I surround myself from my wife to my HR manager to my president with good judge of character. Logan Paul, according to my wife, was a good guy, and to this day, 8 years later, now we still communicate monthly about something, almost always around koi.
What did you think about that Mike Tyson fight with his brother Jake?
You know, I'm assuming you didn't read what I wrote about it on Facebook.
I missed it.
Do you remember? You're a sports fan. I'm sure you remember. Like Mike, I want to be like Mike. The Gatorade commercials about
Oh yeah.
Mike Jordan, Michael
Oh yeah.
Jeffrey Jordan. I said today people could say I want to be like Mike in referring to Mike Tyson. The dude got into the best shape of, pretty much any 58-year-old out there. He looked fantastic. He got in a ring. He made $20 million. And then the joke on what I wrote was he showed his ass to the world. I don't know if you saw that little clip where he walked out with his naked butt on there. And I go, you know what? Good for him. So, and entertainment, WWE type stuff. I was, I got to hand it to him. The guy's figuring it out and he's leveraging it. So good on him.
All right. I missed it. I go to bed early. So they had the fight so late on the Eastern time zone. I was like, I just ran out of energy and I fell asleep, and I woke up in the morning and saw that there was like a tie, and then they picked Jake Paul to win or something like that.
No. Jake Paul dominated, okay. and I called that too. I'm like, listen, I don't, the guy is in, he's in his 20s. He's in his best shape of his life. He's taken on almost a sexagenarian, a guy who's 2 years away from being 60. But, I can't fault either one of them. Paul walked away with $40 million and Tyson walked away with 20 million minimum. So whatever. And I stayed up and watched it.
There you go. I wanted you to share your alligator story. I've been golfing down here in Florida a lot, and these alligators, they lay on the bank right outside the water. And the people at the golf course, Greg, like, oh, they won't bother you or everything. And my heart starts pounding, and I'm like nervous. Stan Genetics like, yeah, go smack it on top of his head. And I'm like, there's no chance. But you had a little encounter with the alligator. You told me off air one time.
Wow, that's a good memory. That goes back to the early 2000s. Listen, I got some, once again, unique friends, and I had this guy named, well, still do, Stroop. We call him Mother Stroop, and he would go down to see this crazy Cajun named Art. It was an airboat operator down in Louisiana, outside of New Orleans. And he said, yeah, we go out at night and we, use flashlights and we go up on gators and we jump on their backs and and I'm like, oh man, of course now. Back then I was 34, 35 years old. So I don't know if I would do this today at 54, but we went out there and I brought a bunch of my customers, my certified aquascape counters. It was actually an advisory meeting for them. And we went out there into the bayou with this crazy Cajun Art, and we would flash lights. And here's the thing, you would, the tip of the nose to the eye socket, every inch represents 1 foot. And so you would be coming up and you had to jump before the bow wave of the boat. You'd be moving 3-4 miles an hour, not very fast, but you'd have to jump. So you'd have about maybe 5 seconds that you'd have to make a decision of whether that was a 6 inches between the socket or 7. If it's 7, you don't want to go. Anything under 6, you could probably get away with it. But sometimes when you're an idiot, they bite back, and I don't know if you can see that, but I got a scar there. It's kind of, the lighting isn't good. I got bit by an alligator at night in the cave because I was jumping on alligators, and every once in a while they bite back. And so, yeah, that's crazy that you remember that story. But yeah, that's pretty much Greg Wittstock in a nutshell right now. Something fun, adrenaline. I got a lot of reptile friends. That's something that I did way back in the day, and I'm not sure I would do it today.
What's your advice to a Floridian golfer now that's afraid of the alligator? I mean, he's like 30 feet over there on the bank, and I'm just not used to it. And I'm like watching him the whole time, and you got to turn your back to him to hit the golf ball at some point. Will they like charge at me, or what's
zero chance of that happening? Now, I would say the only chance that it could happen is if it was a mother guarding her eggs, but they wouldn't be sitting on the bank of their eggs wouldn't be there. So you have zero chance. They're more scared of you. When the number one thing that people would say is, you're jumping at night in the bayou, in this water. And the number one people say is, what if another alligator comes up? No, there's too much commotion. They're afraid. They'll take off. And even when the one bit me, because I loosened my grip because I got cocky after doing it a couple times, and my hat was coming off, and I'm like, oh, I got to reach for my hat, and I didn't even reach for my hat. It was just kind of instinctive. As soon as I released a little bit behind its neck, it turned, and it was like this. In a quick second, it bit me. As soon as I released it, it took off. It would never come after you. So you will never have an alligator come after you. They're way more worried and afraid of you than you are of them.
All right, I'm going to take your word on this, Greg, because I've been sweating it out there, man. They randomly pair you with these other old golfers, like, yeah, they won't bother you, and they're like, go take a picture.
Now, if my ball landed close to one, I would just call that a mulligan and pick up another ball.
Okay, and when the ball there was a time last time we played, my ball was right down on the bank, so I was probably like 2 or 3 yards from the shoreline, And I was terrified that
Oh
while
yeah,
I'm equipment,
they won't come up after you unless they're guarding their babies or eggs, which you probably wouldn't see on a lynx.
okay. And how do they reproduce? How do the alligators uh, mate and have the egg?
You need to explain the birds and the bees. They listen, you'll see a nest because they're not in a golf course pond because they use weeds and which of course golf courses they don't have, cattails and everything else in there, so they go somewhere else to breed. But a mother guarding a nest which is built up above the water with weeds and cattails and things like that, they'll sit around and protect that, but not at a golf course pond because, as you know, as a serious player, they pretty much just those are water hazards, and they're pretty much void of life, which is one of the things I hate about golf course ponds is they could be so beautiful with aquatic plants and everything else, but they're really just considered water hazards, and they don't really treat them as beautiful bodies of water like they could be.
Yeah, they're very popular down here in Florida. What time did you have to end the call? I know we're at the 30-minute mark. I didn't know how long your assistant scheduled it for.
I usually do these for about an hour, so another half hour.
Okay. I did want to get into the financial side of ponds and a lot of guys mowing, edging, trimming, and blowing, Greg. It's let's say they charge $200 a month, and they do 12 months. That's only $2,400 a year, and you're at the customer's house 35, 40 times, mow, edge, trim, blow. Mathematically, you can go in and put in a water feature in one day and make more profit in that one job than 35 times going to Miss Smith's house. Walk us through why someone should consider water features.
Listen, I'm not against mowing and blowing. If you maintenance, in fact, pond maintenance is huge. So if you're a maintenance guy, going out there and doing pond maintenance for customers can be a very profitable. It's impossible, pretty much impossible, to differentiate your services over the next guy with a mower and a blower. Of course, all you're doing when you are installing water features is selling art, and so then it's the talent of the artist as a salesperson to sell. So just not yesterday, but 2 days ago, I got a text from my Brian, my 30-year long teammate in the field, and he sent me a video of the guys putting in a $9,000 fountain, and I did two guys one day, $9,000 fountain, and we probably pocketed, even after all expenses, 6,500. For two guys and a half, and they got done in less than a day. I mean, it was the only thing we did, the two guys did that day, but we technically could have scheduled another one. But where can you make that kind of profit doing landscaping? And the difference is when you're selling services, it's difficult to differentiate your services for cutting the line straighter. When you're selling hardscapes and you bid on square footage size or plant material, where you're doing on caliber size of the trees or whatever. When you sell water features, you sell art. And of course, the challenge for people when they sell art is, can they pull it off? And that's where Aquascape comes in with all of our training and teaching and education. And I don't tell you to go out and start a business doing water features, putting in full ecosystem ponds. That would be high school level. I say put in a fountainscape. That $9,000 fountainscape that I put two guys both in their early 20s to install for 9 grand. After they've done one, they could do another one. So we call fountainscapes elementary school. We call pondless waterfalls with no aquatic, life like fish. Junior high, ponds, high school. You don't want to go straight from elementary school to high school. You want to crawl before you walk, and walk before you run. And then rec ponds, which are, ponds you can actually get into. That's college level stuff. And you don't want to do that maybe ever. You don't have to go to college. You use addition and subtraction fountainscapes a lot more than you do multiplication or trigonometry. So we teach people how to crawl before they walk before they run. And if you do this properly, if you follow the system, and it is a system to the T, you will become very successful. You'll make more money than any other type of landscape installation because you're selling art, but the process to build it remains the same. And so what I get fired up about, Paul, is, well, besides a lot of things, what I get fired about is helping people succeed. The greatest satisfaction in life is helping someone else reach their fullest potential. It's part of running a culture. This is how you keep teammates, because you keep, helping them reach higher and higher. Or This is okay. If your job is, if all you ever want to do is build ponds, or all you ever want to do is clean ponds, or all you ever want to do is work in the accounting department, no problem. We need people like that. But, my current president started off as controller, went to CFO, and now she's the president of the company and allows me to live in another state and do my thing from another state, like these podcasts, or travel to go visit people. But, back to the thing, I travel every winter, once in January, twice in February this year, and teach people this whole formula and this whole system that I've been executing on now for over 3 decades. And then if you just paint by the numbers, if you follow the plan, you will become highly, highly successful. But you can't jump. You can't go from putting in a fountainscape to doing a rec pond. It just doesn't work that way. And the challenge with contractors is they're opportunistic. So they take on bigger jobs than they're ready to do. They have problems with those bigger jobs, and then they say water features suck. They don't suck. You suck because you went too fast. Follow the plan, Stan. Crawl before you walk before you run, and maybe you always just crawl. Maybe you just always do fountainscapes, just something that you add as a services. You never even have to do pondless or ponds. But most people, almost all people that get into this, they become very addicted to it because it's so enjoyable. It's the most enjoyable form of landscaping. You're creating a lifestyle for somebody. You're not just providing a service or a necessary thing like a hardscape or a softscape. You're creating something that they can engage with fish and plants and a lifestyle. And then it becomes addictive because your customers become your friends. And so many contractors who are mow and blow guys, or hardscape guys or softscape guys, become simply water feature guys that might do all the other things as well, just for those customers, because it's such an enjoyable thing, the relationships that you develop with your customers.
Can you walk us through a little bit more of the numbers? You mentioned a $9,000 job. You had something of a material involved in that, and then you had 2 laborers. How do you go about pricing this kind of work? Because guys are used to pricing Mrs. Smith's, yard is going to take us 37 minutes to mow, edge, trim, and blow. So they got those numbers dialed in. But now you start doing these water features. How do you go about making sure it's profitable?
Well, it's very interesting, but Aquascape has a sheet. Aquascape is a franchise system without a franchise fee. So we have there's an answer for every single thing, and so we supply you with our actual bid sheet. It's the same bid sheet that we tweak it from year to year, sometimes with new products and whatnot. But Brian Helfrich, my main sales guy, that's been with me since he was an 18-year-old kid in high school. He's 48 now. So, like I said, 30 years. He uses the same bid sheet every single time, and he modifies it. So if it's a giant rec pond, there's a few more line items to have. If it's a fountainscape, there's less items, but it's a one page, it's a front and back, but it's a one page thing that we could fill out any project, whether it's a $100,000 rec pond or an $8,000 fountainscape in someone's yard. It's the same thing. So when you come to the Aquascape Academy, you get that. When you go to the Aquascape University online, you can take those courses. You can hear directly from the guys doing it. You get to hear from Brian Helfrich in his advanced design course, how he does these things. I'll share it in my academies, and then of course you just start doing it, and it's a plug and play numbers. This is paint by numbers stuff, buddy. Whether it's a pondless or a fountainscape or a whole full bore rec pond, we use that one page bid sheet every single time.
That's so good. Can you explain a little bit more of the experience of doing the online program versus going to Chicago or wherever your headquarters is, right outside Chicago, and doing the in-person training? What do those experiences look like for somebody interested in learning more about this?
Everything that we have, you can learn online. There's nothing that you would come to Chicago and learn more of. However, if you don't come to Chicago, if you don't take the academies, it's a whole different experience because it's culture. You're going to see and experience the culture. It's getting plugged in. Pandemonium, which we do now every other year. We do 1 year online. So this upcoming year is online, but we just had 534 people from 10 countries come to Chicago for Pandemonium. It's the networking. It's the talking to the other guys. You can't do that online. You can't get those connections and those relationships, the ability to pick up a phone and call somebody that you met at the academy. So obviously there's not a single thing that we don't say that we in person that we don't say online, but it's a whole different vibe and experience when you're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth and you're sitting next to a guy that's trying to interpret it, and then you start a relationship with that guy. And this is Aquascape personified right there. You talk about culture. It's a rising, we call it a rising tribe, which is a play on words, lifts all ships. It's like but the worst thing that you have is a guy in your area. This is a very competitive industry, landscaping. People are trying to, worry about the low price guy and everything else. What you want is a good guy putting ponds in for $1,000 difference than you and not $10,000 difference than you, because they've been trained and educated properly on how to price and bid these things. Um, and like I like to say in my academies, you've never lost a job because you were $1,000 higher than the next guy. You lost a job because you failed to provide $1,000 of incremental value in the customer's mind. And when you come to the academies, we'll teach you, we'll show you, you'll get the experience to charge more because you're putting it in correctly. So the tribe that we've created at Aquascape, everybody tries to help each other out. You want certified aquascape contractors in your marketplace putting in water features, because the more water features in the ground, it'll just grow. And you know this, Paul, when you see a Home Depot on one corner, what do you see across the street?
Lowe's.
Because they're growing that area for home improvement projects. It's the same way with water features. There are so many certified aquascapes contractors in the Chicagoland basis because we're there and we're creating more demand than we could possibly ever handle. So the culture of aquascape is on full display when you come to Aqualand, which is my dream. And to be experiencing that and to network with other individuals, you'll just take your game to the next level.
That's so good. Brian Fullerton told me a story. Once upon a time, he I don't know if he snuck in your office or how he got in your office, but he said he's in your office and he saw your calendar. And this thing was months out, as about as detail oriented as you could ever be. And I think I actually heard him do a podcast on Greg Wittstock's calendar one day. Walk us through how you got so laser focused on your goals and this calendar and all that.
My wife would be rolling her eyes because anytime I get a chance to talk about my calendar, I love it. I don't know how people live without a calendar, Paul. What I do is I figure out a year in advance what I'm going to do, and God willing, every day that next year I execute on that. And so this year I was in the office 42 days, and I with only 42 days. Think about that. I'm not working in my business, I'm working on it. And I visited customers and went to the GIE this year. First time in 3 years, 61 days. So I was gone, just over 100 and whatever, 3 days or whatever that was this year. And my goal is always to be about 100 days on the road, not in my own bed. My goal, which I'm not at yet, would be probably 60 days in the office visiting with my team and 40 days visiting with customers. But I already know, like, I got to get blog content for May. So where can I go in March before I go to the All American Koi Show? And I'm going to be in California, so or Vegas is the All American Koi Show. So I'm going to have 4 days scheduled to be visiting customers and vlogging their stuff in California. So, I think everybody should put a calendar together, and then life happens while you're making other plans. You've heard that expression before. Well, I plan my life so that I can execute on my goals, just like Logan Paul is, and my goal is to get 3 vlogs a week and daily content and spend time visiting with customers. This is interesting. I took my son, both boys, when they turned 18, they're 21 and 24 now. We were talking about their engagement earlier. I took them on a backpacking hiking trip. And when I went to Banff, which is by the way, the most beautiful place on earth. Have you ever heard of Banff?
No, sir.
Squirrel. Banff is outside of Calgary. It's a national park. It's the Canadian Rockies. The most beautiful place I've ever been. I'm like, I took my son there, backpacking a few nights out in the wilderness, walking for hours every day. And I said, I'm gonna take my other son here too when he graduates. Well, then COVID happened. He couldn't get to Canada, so we went to the Appalachians. We went up to New Hampshire and did the White Mountains. Anyway, I had to go visit. I'm like, I'm gonna fit in a customer before this that I had previously the year before scheduled, but a hurricane came through, or tornado came through and knocked out all the power, so none of the ponds were running. So I had to unfortunately cancel that trip. So I scheduled the following year, had my son go with me, and I said, "Hey, we got to do one day of work before we go out and play in the White Mountains." And he said, "Sure." At the end of that day, my 18-year-old son, who had just graduated high school, said, "Dad, I think the time that you spend with the customers is equally as valuable as whatever content you get." And I thought, yeah, that's pretty much accurate. So I want to keep my pulse on the industry. I talk to Ed and Brian multiple times a week. These are my 2 longest teammates. And then I visit, as a CEO of the company, I visit my customers while I'm there, I might as well get some content for social media, but it's just keeping my pulse on the industry. So I figure out what content I need, what customers I should go visit the year in advance. I have my whole next schedule. It's November now. I have my whole next year's schedule planned. Some things get tweaked when there's tornadoes that wipe out things like that, and there's things that occur. So it's never ever, it's always a fluid thing, but I know pretty much I'll be gone about 100 days next year. I was about 100 days this year, and that's what I do. That's how I do it.
And can you put that calendar on the screen again to show the colors and the kind of the setup? It was moving kind of.
Sure.
So break us down. What you did this on the computer and print it out, or how
Well,
does
I do nothing. I don't know how to turn a computer on. My assistant does this. Um, you know, I just every color represents different events. So red is out of town, um, pink is in town, um, double lines. There's all sorts of different things, but I put the color coded based off where I'm going to be. It's color coded. The training events is green. Vlog trips are red. Uh, Events like the GIE Expo, I would pull that under training as well because I do podcasts and things like that when I'm doing it down there. So yeah, it's all color coded, it's matched. I'm very proud of my calendars. I can go back and look, from the last 5 years where I was in that particular day, and I just always am constantly tweaking and trying to get better at it. But yeah, I don't know how everybody doesn't live with a calendar because like I already know the dates for Pandemonium 2025, and it's just how I do things.
Yeah, and it speaks a lot, Greg, of your integrity and your character. I know for our podcast here, 7 a.m. your time, 9 a.m. my time, on the dot, you popped right in. And I appreciate that, but it speaks a lot that you have integrity, that that you value other people's time.
I am extremely time anal. Time anal. I've always been time anal. I can't be late if I wanted to. And if you're going to build a pond in the day, you better be time anal. You better have everything there. You better start in time. You better. So yeah, it drives me nuts when like we find people when they're late to work, and this is a controversial thing, but it's something that I believe in. And I could go on a whole rampage about this, but what I didn't tell you with the finding people when they're late for work is I bonus them when they're on time. So I take it out of their bonus. So at the end of the season, if you come to work every day on time, if you bring your lunch, if you wear your shirt, you'll get a bonus. If you come in late, if you don't wear your shirt, if you cause destruction in the team, you're just fine. You're just taking money out of your own pocket at the end of the season. So these are things that I've applied, and this is part of dealing with Aquascape. We're the only manufacturer in the world that actually goes out there every day and builds ponds, maintains ponds. I created the industry, which is kind of in one regard a cocky thing to say, but in the reality was until I started my business in 91 and started patented the products and started manufacturing in 95. No other manufacturer in the world sold professional grade equipment. Today we have some competitors, a lot less than we had before 2008 when everybody was jumping into it, but they don't build ponds, so they can't talk about running a crew or building up a team or how to sit at a kitchen table and close a sale by using your one-page contract. They just say buy my widget. I don't want you to buy my widget. I want to help you succeed, and then hopefully you'll buy my widget.
That's good. One more question about that calendar. So you already have in 2025 is it broken down by the day, by the hour? How detail oriented are you with this?
Well, this is my 2024 calendar. Is there a way to flip this? Well, there's my key code. Can you see that?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So, 45 days in Chicago, 32 work, 30 days personal, 190, so I have a key code for everything. And that's and that calendar is probably old. I'm sure it's changed a little bit right now because I was supposed to go to Japan after England, which is December, but I had to cancel that trip because of X, Y, and Z factors that I don't want to get into here. But it's always being modified, and yeah, that's my calendar.
I love it, Greg. Well, this has been very, very inspiring. And I got to get running here and get ready use the restroom and get ready for the next call. But in departure here, give us the Ohio State Buckeyes prediction as of November 20th, 2024. They're going to be hoisting the trophy. And where is the national championship this year?
I don't know. And it's changed because now it's end of January because of the playoffs and stuff like that. I do know that if they make it to the Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship, I will be there.
Cool. So are you going to predict they're going to be national champions or not? I want to get this on air here.
I will 100% be a homer and say, just like Dwight Howard is for Michigan, I can't vote against my Buckeyes, even losing our center. So I will say, yes, this is the year for us to win the national championship.
Let's go. Don't forget, Greg, they still have Caleb Downs. They still have Jeremiah Smith. They still have Emeka Buka. They still have Will Howard. They still have their 2 running back. I mean, they're still loaded. So I think with a banged up, ragtag, duct taped offensive line, they're still the best team in the country.
And whoever they play could lose their center the week before too with an Achilles thing. So this is part of the game, buddy.
Yeah. I don't know if you know their co-offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline, but we went to the same school. We played golf together. We played basketball together. We grew up going to the same school and everything. So it's pretty cool for me to watch somebody who is a friend, a teammate, succeed in his career. And he does a lot with those wide receivers. It's just really impressive. But I've known him since he was a little kid.
Best recruiter in college, with the wide receivers. And I'll try to find my picture with Brian when I brought my 103-pound alligator snapping. Do you know what my alligator snapping turtle's name is?
No, sir. I don't do alligators or turtles or any of this. This scares me, Greg.
Woody, named after who?
Woody Hayes.
Woody Hayes, because he's got a big bite, just like Woody had that punch. And I brought him to the Real Life Wednesdays. Got to meet Brian Hartline. Got to meet a bunch of the players. I did that a number of years, and those kids go crazy. This is just sorry, I know you have to run here, but little side note, I do that Ohio State Buckeyes Real Life Wednesdays. I stopped doing it about 2 or 3 years ago. I lost my connection over there, but I did it for 4 or 5 years straight. And every single year I had the #1 attended booth. They would have, Nike was there with beautiful, girls, and my booth was bigger because I would have turtles, and these kids would just go nuts over the turtles. You put a 103-pound snapping turtle and they get pictures with them. I got, Chase Young, I got all these pictures with Brian Hartline, Day, Urban Meyer. They all knew me as the pond guy because I would bring turtles, and they've never, these kids had never been, never got a chance to, interact with turtles like that. So just one of the goofy, crazy little stories that has a connection there.
You got to meet Ryan Day and Urban Meyer.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. In fact, Urban Meyer, before he left, said, I want a recruitment pond. He wanted me to put a pond at the WAC, the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. And then he left for Jacksonville. We know how that whole thing went. So I was this close to putting in a pond in for my alma mater sports area.
That would have been cool. Well, Greg, it's always a great time talking to you. Thanks for all the YouTube insights about being consistent and the schedule insights and just everything you've shared about growing a team and everything. It's always great talking to you. And I won't be as scared of the alligators now. I'm going to just trust that they're not going to charge after me when I'm in my backswing.
I don't recommend petting them or jumping on their backs, but they won't bother you other than that, buddy.
All right. Well, good catching up. Go Buckeyes, and hopefully they can win it all this year.
Amen. Go Bucks.
All right. Later, Greg. Good catching up.
Thanks, Paul.